Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another month of the Chichester Chats. It's me, Phil, and Lilith, and of course, we couldn't do this without the man right there, Mr. DG Chichester. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, guys. It's good to see you and hear you both. I think at this point, you probably could do it without me. You could probably just take enough sound clips and probably just combine them together into general answers. So, but thanks for having me instead of doing that.
I've only got the one sound clip so far. I have to work on that.
Got the good mic. I actually, I do some audio stuff of my own, not on your level, but I was actually working with this program where if you give them like 30, 40 minutes of your voice, they will give you a voice clone of yourself, which you can then just type in words, and then it will come back to you in your own voice, and it's eerily close to real. It's very strange.
I know what I'm getting for Charlie for his birthday.
No, I want that.
I love DC.
I've heard of stuff like that. Like if you record enough words, like you can, I don't know how you do it, but you can like make like GPSs and stuff with like in your own voice and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you guys have an Alexa, there's a Samuel L. Jackson voice,
yeah.
but he didn't record, the hours and hours of stuff. They basically took enough of him and then simulated the rest. Well,
that won't ever come back to bite us in the butt.
No, never. No, exactly. That's it. It's really cool on the one hand, but then on the other, it becomes this awful, strange thing which you'd write a story about. You make the villain creating all these alternate characters, except people are doing that already. So we can't keep up with nefarious reality anymore.
I bet you
artificial intelligence wants to have a baby now. Like, it's getting scary. I don't know if you guys seen that story, but yeah.
I did not. I gotta look that one up after this.
Oh no. Lilith, I just know someone we know probably has a clip file on this stuff already. I'm sure there's
I wonder who it could
be. Alright. Let's see. So this time, like I said, we picked something a little different because we've talked a lot of Marvel. I think we pretty much almost talked Marvel exclusively with you, but I did see you did do a DC story, kids.
I did.
So, all right,
two of them if you count Batman, Daredevil. But,
yes, that's true.
Kind of
but
have to,
that's kind of a little of both. But yes. But this one was from Batman, the 80-page giant, number 2 from October 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Hunting for answers. So, all right, my first question was, did you approach them about doing, this is like an anthology book, there's a bunch of short stories, so did you approach them about doing a story in this book, or did they come to you, or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and all credit to the fabulous Joseph Illidge, who was the editor on this, and he was also my line editor on Hardware. When I worked on Hardware for, the first run of Milestone, and had a good relationship with him, and he liked my Daredevil work, which is one of the reasons, he brought me in. I think Dwayne McDuffie also had a role in that to a degree, but Joe approached me on this, and it was at a weird point in my career, in my comics career, because I wasn't getting a lot of work. I had probably segued out of working on comics for the most part. In fact, when Joe called me, I think I was in the midst of my first advertising job, not really knowing what I was doing at all, and so I think this being an 80-page giant, when there were such things as an editor, you probably have to fill in a lot of the gaps and the page count beyond the main Batman story. So I'm sure he called a lot of folks, but I was glad he called me, and although I think I was probably in a weird headspace at that time, we could talk about that a little bit. But he approached me and worked out the story details, and then I actually got to meet him in person. I think for the first time. I don't think I'd met him in person before that, because when I was doing Milestone, I was further upstate, and so it was. And Joe, except for I noticed he's now grown his hair out a bit during COVID, has not changed in all this time. He's basically got a Dorian Gray thing going. Anyway.
So yeah, in these anthology books, How much did they give you like a list of characters that you can do, or did you pick? Because this is a Huntress story. Did you pick the Huntress, or did they assign you the Huntress? Again, with that, like an anthology book, how do they do that?
And it's every editor is going to run it their own way, and I think nowadays, again, from what I know from just side conversations, it sounds like editorials a lot more stringent about certain things with certain characters and probably certain creators. But I found there was a lot of latitude to it. This is going back a ways, and it wasn't a main, thrust. It wasn't a regular title I was working on where you guys have asked questions and I've been able to drag up enough neurons to give you a little bit of detail. But I'm pretty sure Joe asked me to do a Huntress story. As an 80-page special, you're trying to create a range of things, right? It's not going to be whatever fits in there, 5, 6 Batman stories, just one Batman story after another with all the stuff that goes on in Batman's universe would make no sense. So he asked me to do a Huntress piece, but from there it was pretty wide open. I think we then discussed a little bit about, all right, what villains, what situations would you play with? And it was as close to a non-consequential story, I think, as I've probably ever done, which doesn't mean you don't put all your effort into it, but nothing's really going to happen from me doing this limited, X number of page story. I'm not going to dramatically affect the course of the Huntress's career. This isn't going to be the jumping off point for a new title, no matter what happens. So you don't bring anything less than your best effort, but you still kind of know, all right, I'm not going to upend the whole DC universe. So Huntress feels like it was probably, this is how I want to, from an editorial point of view, this is one of the things I want to add to it. But from there, what do you want to do with it? Who do you want to play with? And from there, I think I probably would have spun off of, is anyone using the Riddler yet? And can we do that? Because the Riddler was always one of my favorite villains, especially going back to the 66 TV series and Frank Gorshin's manic, really kind of homicidal, I think, representation of the character, even though everyone looks at it as a kind of a goof, and it is. But Gorshin was just such a terrific persona. So I think I probably asked for the Riddler. Nobody was using him, or if they weren't overusing him. And so, then I had to pitch the story.
All right, not to get us too far off track, but did you see the Batman movie yet?
I did. All 3 hours of it, and then I ran before the after credits little blip because I had to get to the restroom. But too much information on a Saturday morning. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I wasn't. It didn't seem revelatory, to me. It wasn't suddenly, oh my God, Batman's been done right finally. I'm a big fan of the Christian Bale movies. And obviously I'm a big fan of a lot of the comics. So for me, Batman's been done right many times. But I liked it. I thought there was a lot of great qualities. I thought Pattinson was a really good Batman. All the characters, Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, everything about it really felt solid. I liked the more detective angle on it, which I think a lot of people did. Although I think he's kind of detective light. There's, the riddles aren't really that tricky in a way. I don't like the fact he never really spars with the Riddler in a way. There's that scene at sorry, spoiler alert, go see the movie, people, already. When he confronts him, toward the end in Arkham. But I think the structure of it sort of felt like there was more of an opportunity for some kind of interchange to heighten it. It's got a very Seven Light structure to it, to my mind. If you're familiar with the Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman movie,
let's just picturesque in a lot of regards, please. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a cool movie. Too dark though. I'm sorry. And I know I'm like old and decrepit, and I wear 14 pairs of glasses, but only 3 really. But in my theater, it was funny because everything, according probably in yours as well, everything's the recliner seats, reserved seating. Every seat in this theater had these little adjustable recliner buttons with these bright blue LEDs, right? So you've got this massively dark, rainy thing up here on this giant screen, super dark, and then, at least for me, this pinprick of 100 little blue lights below that. So my eyes were constantly like adjusting between the two. And that's the thing I didn't enjoy about it. It's just, I think they could have lightened it up a little bit and still gotten across the fact that Gotham is rainy and dreary and home to bats and cats and such. And polluted. Did you guys like it?
Yeah, I mean, we liked it for the most part. I mean, I agree with everything you said, but I thought it was one of the better Batman movies we've gotten in the last couple years, probably since the Nolan stuff. Yeah.
Right. Has there been any Batman stuff since? Oh, I guess you count. I totally forget the Snyder stuff. I totally, honest to God,
it's better for you.
You miss Batman in those movies. To be fair, truly.
I guess do you bleed? I mean, you may. Or I'm rich. I mean, awesome moments like that. How could you forget these, Lilith? It's just,
Why?
That's just what they are. Sound clips for a trailer.
Why'd you say that name?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes you forget everything.
I honestly, maybe it's just something, I don't know, but I really, honestly, totally forgot the Justice League both times I saw it.
It's better for you.
As soon as it was over. I just, and I'm not even dissing, it's just like completely forgot what happened, characters, anything about that. So
that's why you're a well-adjusted human being.
Exactly. Speaking of being a well-adjusted human being, you did an excellent choice. You did an excellent job with Huntress. So were you super familiar with Huntress? Because Earth 2 is my favorite Huntress. So I would be so tempted. Can I use Earth 2?
I remember distinctly because I was a huge Batman fan. Growing up and reading Batman comics, and the Denny O'Neil and the Neil Adams Batman was really, really strong for me. The Jim Aparo Batmans, these really stick in my head. I remember distinctly the issue where they introduced Huntress, as the character. So I remember that, and even then, not really thinking about story and character in that same way, thinking that was a really interesting variation on everything, an extension of it. It wasn't just an alternate Earth 2 Batman. It was a way to sort of recreate the mythology, as it were, with an extension that felt really, really legit and really interesting. So definitely, I was familiar with it from that origin story. Really, really stuck with me. It's scary when you can remember things from that many years ago, from things you do last week. James Fry, who was an artist at Marvel back in the 80s and 90s, so just sent me a note the other day where he was laughing because he said, "I remember a gag proposal that I wrote 35 years ago." He was saying this. He remembers it better than the names of people he met last week. So there's something about
formative memories.
I guess. I knew. Go ahead, Phil.
I was gonna say I have to write notes to remember stuff from the day before, but I mean I have Chichester Daredevils stuck in my head, from my teenager.
So I knew the character hadn't kept up with every piece of added mythology and such that they would have, put through to it. So I'm pretty sure I would have asked, Joe for a primer and caught up with whatever the equivalent of the DC guide to the the DC universe would have been at that point, just to see if there were some things to pick up on. But the basic formative aspects of the character were still there, which I think is the mark of a good character, where it really kind of becomes indelible early on. So it was fun to play with her.
And so is it more challenging to do like a short story, that's just a few pages, and like you said, you're not going to affect the continuity, so maybe that's nice, but it's like you kind of have to set it. I don't know how to put it, but is it more challenging or less challenging to do this than like say like a monthly book or even a mini series or even like a full issue?
everything's got its pluses and minuses. The shortness of a story like that, this means it's economy, right? You get to get in and out quickly. You get to choose your really shiniest moments, as it were, and focus on those. The other part of it is again the shortness of it. You don't have anything else going on. You don't have one more page. You can call an editor and say, hey, can I do a 21-page story this month or something like that? Because I wrote myself into a corner and I have to get out. You don't have that extra breathing room. Everything just becomes this cycle of service, to that. So it's a bit back and forth. I think the thing that you miss about it is you start to introduce things and things start to come alive for the characters. I can't intellectually remember the moments where the Riddler started to kind of goad her and go, you're not the Bat, and why am I even wasting my time with you, and playing things out that way. But I can sort of intuitively feel it, and knowing that you're starting to plant those kinds of seeds in somebody, in a character, sort of starts to say to you, well, this could actually play out a ways, couldn't it? This could become something that she starts to kind of have to work through more than these X number of pages. So that's where you get a little disappointed, because I think in any good story, as we've talked about before, the characters start to take over for you. If you're just mechanically plotting it, and that's plotting with 2 T's and 2 D's, it along the way, you're just kind of going by the numbers. You're kind of cranking out this really flaccid story. But when they start to do things like that, then you're kind of onto something, and then that, geez, I wish I had more to do with this. I wish I had the wherewithal to pitch Joe Illidge. Hey Joe, can I do another Huntress story and another special? Or what about a Huntress one shot? Anything, we could talk about that. Any bit of ongoing comic smartness evaded me outside the confines of that X number of page story.
So you would have been up for a Huntress miniseries or ongoing?
Yeah, but I was stupid, Phil, at that point. I was really, 30
Advertising
years.
takes it out of you. As somebody who's been there, done that.
It
takes it out of you. It dulls you.
At that point, I was very, comics hadn't called, for a long time. My attempt to call comics hadn't been returned. Joe was a good guy, but also a guy a smart guy, and he wasn't calling me out of a favor. He was calling me because he respected my work. But I had gotten this very black and white mentality. Comics burn me, so I'm going to burn comics back. Like they could care less, right? So I had this 1 month plus advertising job. I wasn't even fully into it, as I would later become. This was a 1 month gig down in Saatchi, where I was writing a website for Lycra.
Oh, wow!
As if
Just
I had
old enough to remember that.
As if I had any experience, any validity or experience, writing a website at all, doing any sort of marketing or advertising. I guess the only qualification I had was I had done enough characters wearing the equivalent of Lycra, a stretchable, skin-clad fabric. So I was in the middle of this, and this just felt, I got to devote myself to this. I got to focus on this work. Whereas now I'm working on 6 projects at once, for different clients as well as my own thing. So, but at that point, it's like, no, I'm doing this. Well, Joe, probably when Joe called, I could even imagine myself, Lilith, being stupid enough not to say no, but no, I don't know, Joe. I'm really busy with this advertising stuff. I'm being an adult now. So, and probably Joe saying, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And although I can't imagine Joe ever saying exactly that, but that sense of, it felt very one and done. It felt for no good reason. Again, Joe was a and is. I mean, you look at where Joe is now, but a smart guy, a smart editor, somebody who liked my work, all the things are kind of lining up there in front of me to at least say, Joe, can I pitch you another story? Joe, can I, is there anything going on? Do you like the Huntress story? Can we do something else with the Huntress? Geez, this seemed like there's a great jumping off point. Why don't we do a Huntress special? Anything, or nothing. Nothing to my mind came out. It was sort of like even when I met him for coffee or lunch, it was like, gee, I don't know, Joe. I don't know if we can break off from my very important Lycra website here. It's a moron. Just the stupidity of more youthful time and also having been quote unquote burned and feeling way, way, way too black and white for my own good. It's either this or that. And whereas comics should have stayed a side hustle. Even if I got one job every year, even if I got one job every 5 years, right? It would have been something.
And knowing you're probably.
I want to live in that alternate universe, to be honest.
Yes,
me too.
We miss
Me
you.
too.
We do.
And again, knowing you're probably worried about Y2K fast approaching at this point.
Everything's going to clear the slates, and we're going to be back to chiseling out comics on cave walls and such. Yeah.
Oh, I told Lilith, I'm like, she probably not. I don't know if she's old enough to remember. I remember being at a party that New Year's Eve, and everyone just holding their breath, with like, are the lights going to stay on? Was everything just going to crash and burn? Yeah.
I remember it, but we weren't worried. Like, only idiots would worry about that. That's not how computers work.
I remember initially being, because I was pretty aware of technology even then, and I remember initially saying, okay, maybe that's a worrisome thing. But then I was going to a lot of whatever you want to call them, digital technology meetings and conferences and stuff, and I started to hear from so many people who just sounded like utter con men, in the sense that we're selling Y2K protection, Y2K redundancy, whatever services. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, these people are just getting in there and getting the bucks from everybody else as quickly as possible. So I don't think I was just
Hit
worried.
the Hill has the best episode about Y2K. It's the one where they buy the grandfather clock. that sums up how I felt about Y2K as a kid.
Okay.
Probably.
So
Yeah.
so it was the horse tranquilizer of its day. Okay. I get it.
Exactly.
All right. So you said you picked the Riddler for this story. You said you like the character of the Riddler. So were you excited? You're like, oh, I get to write maybe some really good riddles, or is there ever pressure? I know for me, I'd be like,
He had a Riddler.
He had a Riddler clip file. Yes.
I wish. And then listen, credit where credit, big air quotes, where credit's due. I didn't have the luxury of the interwebs, right? To sort of just go and go to riddles.com and get 10,000 riddles. So I would have had to do real research probably. I probably had to go to bookstores and libraries and because I'm sure I did that. I know I did that because we had all the different luck symbols and things kind of hanging around there, which you had to choose from. Which Joe was smart enough to have me remove the swastika symbol, the reverse one, at one point. I was trying to make a big point of, the original one is a sign of luck, and Joe was like, yeah, that's not going to work out so well. But I didn't try to die on that hill, but I was certainly trying to be overly intellectual, because before the Nazis converted it is a I want to say Hindu.
People ruin nice things all the time.
No, it's
Look
true.
at the Punisher. Still bitter.
I'm sure it'll be back in due time. There's nobody taking that trademark away from them. But it is a tough thing to come up with good riddles. It is and not feel like you're bending yourself into either doing something so obvious or bending itself around that. How did you get to that answer, and how does it sort of conclude? Where do you go from there? So I don't know if I quite 100% succeeded, but I think it's a fun thing to play with. And again, I think it's a character that is, as a villain, it's a trickier device than sort of just saying the mad clown of the Joker or whatever, but far more interesting than just a straight up serial killer or lunatic in that way.
Well, yeah, because like right before this, the one me and Lilith were recording a Batman episode where we were talking about that classic Joker fish storyline. But yeah, we said that's like the best like stories of the Batman's rogues are like, it's like, yes, they are insane, but like when you show like they have an intelligence behind it too.
Joker's insane for tax purposes. It's what keeps him in Arkham and not Blackgate. Okay, we all know this.
Oh, I think they all caught on to that now, except for Penguin. Yeah.
Well, I think that's right, Phil. Though it's I think the villains are not always, but especially rogues galleries that you remember are reflections of the character. They're mirror images in certain ways. And if you start to think about it in that way, and it shouldn't just be, we're brothers, we're sisters, we're siblings, we're on the same side, that type of thing. But it allows you to explore other directions. And Batman is a freak, right? You go back to the classic Alan Moore line. You had a very bad day. All it takes is one bad day to push you out of the light and into lunacy, and you had a very bad day. And so Batman is fiercely intelligent and a freak. And so his best villains, to my mind, are the same thing. They're freakish characters. They're deformities by choice or dress and persona, and yet they are fiercely intelligent. They have this this mania, but that mania is driven driven with smarts and characteristics of the mind, as much as they are about just I'm a crazy person and look what I'm doing and look how I look.
But yeah, see, as a kid, I thought all these writers were smart, but they're like, man, they came up with all these riddles. So you're saying, oh yeah, everyone's doing their research for these riddles.
I don't know. I mean, I assume.
I would assume most of them are.
I did come up with a riddle for this episode, Phil. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
It might be a little crass for Dee, but we'll see. What has a bottom at the top?
What?
Your legs. Perfect.
There you go. But I'm bummed. I thought there was a lost opportunity in the movie for Andy Serkis not to ask what has it got in its pockets, but that was there's
See, I'm always out of it because I was like, oh, he's doing more detective work in this movie, and then I saw one review. They're like, yeah, standing around brooding and like doing dirty looks at a crime scene isn't detective work. So,
well, it's not. It could have went a lot further in.
Yeah,
that's the thing, but I think the fact they nodded toward it and it wasn't just punch, 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 which was why I was hugely disinterested from the first trailer, as stylish as it looked and big explosive car engine, all that stuff. It was just him beating on people again. And I think the detective angle was far more interesting. It was detective light though.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about this before, but you guys play games, right? You're gamers, I imagine, to a certain extent. The original Batman Arkham games are master classes, I think, in Batman as Punch and Batman as detective. There's some great fun detective work in there that he works through, that you work through, and you discover things and analyze that don't break the flow of an open as sandbox-ish story. So he could have done a little bit more with things. I mean, he's sort of, it's a code, and then Alfred figures out the code. Alfred could have figured out, but I get that they're also trying to set up that he's early.
Yeah, it's only year 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Although year 2, you already got a bat signal. Did you really even prove yourself in year 1?
I don't know. I thought the eye thing was cool. I like the the eye analyzer that allowed him then to look at clues.
That's a real thing. Well, in development.
Yeah. Those contact lens type things, but that's but then it was in there, but it could have been in there more.
Yeah, I could use more fingerprint analysis or something. Yeah, something, just showing him doing actual forensic work or something.
Right.
That's for the help, Phyllis. At the heart of it, he is still a rich, privileged man. He delegates.
I guess. But yeah, no, I thought you did in this story. I thought the whole Riddler thing was No, you did a good job on that, especially at the end. I mean, I thought that was quite the twist where it's like, oh, hey, I disarmed this trap and freed these hostages. And they're like, yeah, no, you got it wrong. I think you just lucked out that we're not all dead.
Well, yeah, that was me definitely planting No, not me, I'm going to say. That was the characters playing themselves out. I think once you sort of set up that situation where he's like, you're not Batman. Where he's, you're not Batman. I'm not even going to... That's
you're not even second fiddle. You're not even Robin.
Exactly. What are you? You're a fill-in story. And that's where, all right, well, what does she do now? Does she just dismiss him and say, no, I am the Huntress. I am, a well-known vigilante, and you must quake in fear? Or does it start to play out her doubts? I think it's packed in a little too tight. Again, if I'm going to be self-critical, because of the tightness of the story, you sort of set up that doubt, that angst, and you sort of try to resolve that moment in one painful expression and, a line of dialogue or a caption. Toward the end, it could have used a little bit more breathing room, a page or two probably, but you're out of pages.
Listen, you always do the best with what you have. This was a great story. It's like, I wouldn't even ever have thought to pair Huntress and Riddler. Like, that is just...
Yeah, and it's fun. And then you get, if I was a smarter person then, maybe I'll call Joe now. Maybe he can get me a Huntress job now.
If you need a petition, just let us know.
Hey.
But I should have said Joe, because I know he liked the story. And he was again, very much a lean-in editor. He was not an editor that was just going to take it. We had discussions about the luck symbols and the right things to do and how to play them out. And he was, I'm sure, quote unquote, on the spot. I can't remember how long after Milestone had shut down, obviously way, way too early. And then him transitioning over to DC, which was smart on their part to keep him, but I'm sure he was under the spotlight somewhat to, all right, you're playing you're playing with real characters, right? Big air quotes around that. So I'm sure there was some critical nature of you have to get this right, but with Joe's talent, that was easier for him than probably some. So he would want to get the story well, but I should have said, Joe, we set some things up here. What if we... Now the Riddler has a relationship with Huntress. Huntress has a relationship with let's play this out some more. Or if not that, something else. But that's for maybe that shows up in the Multiverse of Madness. Maybe I'm still at a typewriter somewhere.
I mean, this would be the time to reach out, because it seems like if anything gets greenlit over there these days, it's Batman and Batman related stuff. So
it is. It has to be exhausting.
Back into the classic era of the 80s and 90s. So.
It has to be exhausting for readers, though. I would think just like there's it's great to have a I guess plethora of choices, but that just seems like there's almost like too much. Like, where do you start?
You just pick a character and go at this point.
I guess
you can't be like all knowing anymore. You just have to pick a character that's your special interest.
Yeah, Lilith and I have had this conversation. Like, back in the day, we used to be like try to be completists. You can't do that anymore. Unless you're vastly wealthy, you can't do that anymore. Like, everything.
Yeah, it'll bankrupt you. It was like before. It was like, oh look, there's 3 Batman titles.
$2.99.
There's 3 Spider-Man. Yeah, right.
And again, Marvel and DC puts out so much stuff, and then you have all these like indie companies putting out good stuff now too. So it's like
it is. It's absolutely It's which is terrific. For comics readers and comics fans to have that many choices, but
then you get that choice paralysis too.
I know.
Right, where do I go?
You're standing at the back wall. You're like, well, I got some extra money for about 2 books, and then you go to that back wall and you just.
Oh, I'm just going to take the stuff I know. Do I take a chance on this, or no? I'm just going to buy another Batman title.
Exactly.
Just too many choices. But so did you? I mean, I know you said how it was back then, but I mean, have you given any thought to, it's like, what do I do with like a Huntress? Because this version of the Huntress, wasn't Earth 2 Batman's daughter. This was she was the daughter of like a mafia family who was killed by other members of the mafia. Yeah, did you give any thought to like what you would have done had you got more Huntress to do?
No, I would again not remembering exactly who that guy was all those many years ago in exactly that way, but he was a bit of an idiot, clearly, and it's. I was trying to set Phil up for a spit take, but didn't quite get there. But I don't think he/I was smart enough to think about that. I think I was focused exclusively on telling a good story, doing a good job for Joe, who was I enjoyed working with and was given enough respect for the fact of him calling me and knowing the responsibility he had to do a good 80-page giant special or whatever, and so I wasn't gonna do a half-baked job, but I was not smart enough to sort of say, all right, how do I try to play this out? And whether I was actually thinking it all the way through and saying, oh, I've been burned before, what if I put all this effort in and it goes nowhere? Well, that happens every day, that's the smarts of years of experience then come back into play. It's like I do that every day. I'll do that 10 times this week. I'll send out 10 things beyond the things that I'm already working on, and one will come through or none will come through, and then you just go back and do it again. So, but sometimes those are also the things that lead to other things. Nobody picks up that. I could have pitched a Huntress story and a Riddler thing or an extension of this and played with some of the Mafia stuff, which I would have still had plenty of inner city crime references from Daredevil, right? It wasn't like I had any shortage of thinking about urban crime and how we can sort of draw things about her background. I think I still have books from then sitting around now, which means it's time to clear out some of the bookshelf. But it just wasn't in my brain pan to sort of say, all right, use this as some good. I was focused on this over here, Lycra, all important Lycra website, and the stupidest thing of all this, because this is the great thing about these are like after midnight the Chichester Chats can become the Chichester Confessionals. The best thing about all this, I wasn't even smart enough, Lilith, to figure out how to parlay that advertising thing into something else. When that assignment would finish at the end of that month or whatever, I wasn't even smart enough to say to them, okay, what else you guys got? It was like, okay, it's done. I guess I'll just go back to doing nothing. And it wouldn't be until the woman who was the creative director there at Saatchi & Saatchi had moved over to Ogilvy and Mather, and she would call me a year later for something else entirely. But it wasn't like I was smart enough to keep in touch with her and say, Audrey, you got anything else kind of going on? Because to me, it was like I didn't even understand how advertising assignments work. It's amazing I'm here speaking with you now. The fact I can get up upright in the morning is just
network.
I just think and network. Just start with thinking.
And meanwhile, in 1999, I mean, weren't we in the middle of no man's land, Lilith? So I think it's like they probably had that whole year planned out. So if they would have given you a Huntress book, it probably wouldn't have been until early 2000, probably.
2001, probably. They did have their stuff together back then. They were a little bit plotted out.
Right.
What are you saying? These days are just like, yeah, throw Batman in it. Okay.
Well, no, it's 5G, but it's not 5G. Like, it's been like 2 years at this point. We still haven't definitively
gotten to it.
Out.
Everything matters.
But you pitch a story too, and sometimes people don't buy the story, but they buy you.
Mm.
Yeah.
And they're no, this isn't going to work. We can't use the Huntress. The story doesn't add up for these reasons, but we really like how you think. And really liking how you think, well, we got this thing over here. We've got this, little bit of stuff, and maybe that becomes something else, or it just becomes little bits of something else. But
see, I even back then I always thought, I'm like, oh man, I love your run on Daredevil. I wish you'd have done a Batman run. Now I see what happened. You were working on that Lycra website. Okay,
the Lycra website, yeah. Right.
That's why I like pure spandex. No Lycra at all.
It's there's a straight line between me and LuLaRoe. It's if I hadn't done that website, all those multi-level marketing, stretchy leggings would not be in existence today. It's just
some
well-known
fact.
People
will thank you for the stretchy leggings.
Oh, let's start an internet rumor. Gigi Chichester started Lula Room.
But I just out of curiosity, do you ever think about maybe getting back into editing like that for comics? Does the thought just like cross your mind at all?
Every now and again. In fact, I have to hit send on Monday to somebody about, I don't know what it is actually, and I can't speak of anything more because I actually signed an NDA even to talk about it. But there was some editorially related project for something that came through Carl Potts, who used to edit Punisher and many other things, and so he bounced it my way.
We miss you, buddy. We do.
It sounds intriguing, but I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know if they're looking for somebody like me. I don't know if it's a full-time thing, which I don't really have any interest in, or if it's kind of contract work over, X amount of titles or projects, or even what those titles or projects specifically would be. I know this is incredibly vague, but
we understand.
I would play that out. I mean, there was a point in time where I felt, and I was probably right about it, that I was a better editor than I was a writer, because I came out of editing and I felt more comfortable in that role, looking at people's stories and being able to identify, you're 80% of the way there, do this, this, and this, and we got gold. And that was a safer place to be because you didn't have to actually sit down and do it. Right now I'd probably prefer to write it and then be edited than I would to do the editing. Although from many years of just even in advertising, doing creative direction, which was a form of editing, right? I would have to work with teams and they would have an assignment, and that assignment was telling a story with the ad or with the digital thing, the website or the app or the game or whatever we were creating for some marketing thing, and then editing them, saying, nope, that didn't make it, and here's why, or you're 80% of the way there, and do this, this, and this, and we're going to be in a good place to take this in front of the client. So all those skills I had sort of developed were played out and in a good way, but now I think we're slower moving than I'd like, but the thing I'm working with Carl Waller, this project I'm writing and working with him is something I'm hoping actually we get to a point where it becomes something real, and that'll be a nice creative exercise in comics.
So the editing or writing, do you have a favorite, or in a perfect world would you have your hands in both?
I think there's value in both. I mean, there is value in both. Anybody who disses an editor, turn their nose up at them, right? There are bad editors. There's bad everything in one form or another. But editors, and I don't say this just because I started there and spent a good amount of time there. Editors make your work better, and you as a creator, if you're a writer or an artist or whatever. You need to work with that editor and challenge that person, make sure they're making you better. Somebody who just reads something and says, "Oh, this is great." That's like your mom. Nice job, Lilith. That's such a good effort. Phil, really? Oh, look, you can use the color blue on here. You want somebody who challenges you and makes it better. The story I was mentioning, with Carl Waller, I gave it to my friend Greg Wright, who was and is an editor, a fierce, uncompromising editor. He just he smacked the shit out of me on it. He's like, it's yeah, I see where you're going, but this doesn't work. And I've been working on it for a long time. And I said, I'm actually scared to show this to you because I know you're not going to just say, nice job, Dan. The best case scenario is you're going to find all the problems. You're going to make me fix them. The worst case scenario, which I was legitimately scared of, was he's going to look at it and he's going to say, this whole thing sucks. There's nothing here. And if he said that, I would know he was right because that's how much respect I had for him as an editor. So fortunately, it was the former, and we fixed the problem. But I think if you have a chance to do both in a sort of alternate area, I would do 80 writing and 20 editing, because I think when you edit, you look at it from the outside. a little bit. You're devoted to the title, you're devoted to the people, but it allows you to put some other critical skills on it, which you can then reapply when you're writing, right? Because now you're hearing both sides of it. When I was editing, and I would get scripts from people like Pat Mills, who is a UK British writer, and for me, worked on a book called Martial Law, which, if you don't know it, you ever have a chance to find it, is sort of like the proto boys, the proto any of these things that sort of in a Britishism, take the piss out of superheroes. Pat Mills and Kevin O'Neill were there way early on. But Pat's scripts they felt like they just came out of solid stone to me, because there was and they were tight, right? They were tight. It was like holding the originals. There was it's like Beethoven, right? And Amadeus, it's like, these are the originals. There's not a note out of place. I'm sure he'd gone back in and retyped a page, but every word seemed so precise, every turn of phrase, every bit of dialogue. And to me, it was like, all right, this is how you do it. This is how you learn. And I learned that as an editor. And then I would advise on certain things, or I would see little bits and prod and push it back and forth. But I think you gain something from both sides.
I just know that, editorial right now, those departments are kind of in disarray. That's just kind of why I mentioned it. Whereas, they're only trying to give books to, the same six on both sides of the aisle at this point. So the same 6
creative teams, you mean? Like that? Mm-hmm. That's pretty much.
You got your Tom Taylors, you got your Chip Zdarsky's. They're just holding up the whole company on their back at this point.
I guess it's known quantity, right? Keep it going. I look at some of these folks and I'm like, how do you put out that much work? I guess they're just very.
They don't sleep, from what we gather.
Maybe it's that must be the quality, but it's tough, right? From an editorial point of view, I would imagine. Even today, maybe even more so today, because you're also
lots of pressure.
Lots of pressure to perform with
crossovers, event after event.
Exactly.
You still want continuity,
right? And if they are more, call it company or editorially driven, it's not so much about what's Lilith's vision, what's Phil's vision. You're going to create your own pocket universe and do these little coordinated crossovers once a year or something, where somebody has to show up in an issue. It's more, I need somebody who's going to deliver, who's going to deliver on sales, so the name value, and then deliver on schedule, which is important. But also, if I give you all this big DC crossover crap, big story or whatever, that I know that you're going to carry the baton through it all. Not somebody who's going to wrestle with me. And maybe when somebody becomes a known quantity with an editor, it's easier to sort of stick with that than take a chance on that guy looks really talented, but I don't know if he's going to deliver on time. I don't know if he's going to try to do his own thing. I don't know if he's going to challenge me about swastikas and all this other kind of stuff. And I never challenged.
Yeah, that we're definitely at that point. And I mean, the stories are great, but I do, for a long time there hadn't been fresh blood. And now the fresh blood is the old blood again. So.
And that's the thing. It'll be shaken up again. It has to be. Where do those fresh bloods come from? And comics, this is the other thing, right? Then comics traditionally, like maybe all entertainment, become, they diss the people, which is the sad, 80% of those people will be forgotten in short order unless they're smart enough to go make their own track, which some of them are, because they will no longer be the fresh flavor of the day. And they will quickly be out the door, and which is crazy. There's very little continuity in terms of taking care of people who are the A-list talent, who are still talented, but it's like time to force you out the door. There's a heartbreaking thing you should read if you ever have a chance, which was an editorial essay that Herb Trimpe had written for the New York Times, I think, and Herb was one of the mainstay artists on the Hulk, for many years. He was a mainstay artist throughout Marvel. Created a little character called Wolverine. But did you ever read this essay? Have you ever seen this?
No, I don't think that I have.
Well, I mean, when Image became Image and was becoming Image, And that was the style, right? That's what everything had to become. Herb's style and many other artists, who had been dependable, schedule-wise, great storytellers, but their style was not Image. Their style was more, quote-unquote, traditional comics, right? Suddenly, we don't need you, right? Even though you're on contract, we don't need you. And so, this is a guy at 56 who, and the essay is about the fact, I'm going in, they're not giving me work. It's kind of almost like a journal, like, day by day sort of little account of quickly becoming a non-entity. And this has been his life, right? This has been his life from a livelihood point of view, creative point of view. Now what do I do? Right? There's nothing.
And that's the love-hate of modern comics. Like, we have a lot of choices to go create our own, but that doesn't give the big two companies an excuse to treat their
right,
talent
or anything. And that's where people have to think about, right, their longer-term continuity, which can be hard. It could be hard if you're in the midst of being the A-list team on Batman or Daredevil or whatever thing you're on. I'm here. I'm in the catbird seat. I don't need anything else. But you do need to kind of plan.
I do miss the camaraderie of the old school guys, though. You just don't get that anymore, and that's a shame. We lost something special. I feel so old saying this now, though. But like 90s, 80s, 70s. That is like.
Well, I think a lot of it's work. Between working from home, a lot of them the last 2 years, and like you said, like DC's getting rid of a lot of offices. You were saying, Lil, so more and more of them are working from home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they I think a lot of companies
they're cutting budget, but that's probably to make them more agreeable to what Discovery, so Discovery doesn't absolutely do a bloodbath, things like that, like AT&T did when they came in. So
I said to Mike
you
Carlin,
do what you gotta do.
Apparently they all had these amazing doors in their office, right? They all had these crazy doors. I said to Mike, what do you do with those doors, man? I'll come pick up a few.
Broke my heart when they moved to LA, and I was just like, it's a hell math, I tell you, it's a hell math. Now look at it.
But now it just seems like, you want to be like a recognized name, but I think it's like, who can deliver us at least 2 events every year? So.
Right.
At least, Lilith, if one lasts 6 months and then the other one lasts 6 months, there you go.
And knowing how to coordinate with everything. I mean, it's no small skill set, I'm sure.
Oh, no.
To both.
Oh, yeah, Jen McKay kind of got into that a little bit. We interviewed her because we were like, you have this whole thing going on. It's weekly. It's,
Yeah, right. And I got to be, talk about a riddle, talk about, like building a puzzle. I've got to do some degree of continuity and character building for my character, but I've got to put things in this place right here for that next baton toss or that next setup. And then I got to pick up God knows what. It's almost, it's like comics karaoke, or maybe more like comics Mad Lib, insert story point here and hope it fits for the next, for the overall read.
And then there's that poor guy who wrote the Devil's Reign Spider-Man issue. He had to squeeze it into the Spider-Man event that was going on, and there was a Devil's Reign event going on. So basically, his one issue had to cross over between
Spider-Man.
two. Yeah, between two.
Everybody's gonna pick that issue up.
I know, and he had to do it, and he did a good job. But it was like he had to do it between 2 events. It's like,
right. And how many editorial offices do you have to go through? Do A-list creators like Zdarsky get approval on things? I don't know, but if they do, God help the person having to kind of manage all that stuff. I mean, I remember just going out to lunch with Fabian and Chuck Dixon. We did our Daredevil crossover, and the 3 of us just hashing the whole thing out like over burgers, and that was it. And so this is what we're going to do.
Anymore.
Went back to the office and told the editors, "This is what we're doing. Hope you like it."
I still want one day to get those 2 on here, and we'll just find out all the secrets of that lunch.
I may remember more than they do. Who knows? They're like Chichester. Who's him?
You're like, I drank the least in that lunch. All right, but any other questions, Lilith, or should we let him go?
Not at all. I do want to live in that alternate universe where he was able to pick up that baton and turn it into something.
Me too.
Yes.
That was a very interesting combination.
And at some point in this year, because I think we'll cover some of that milestone stuff since you mentioned it. So.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah,
it's always a good time for milestone for me.
That was some of the most interesting work I think I've ever worked on, just because the world was so dense and complete, and not just because whatever hardware was like 45 or whatever issues in at that point, but the Bible itself was amazing. From moment one, they had this world ready to kind of go. So
I can't wait to pick your brain about that then.
And again, I haven't read a ton of it, so yeah, I'm interested. I want to see what you did there. But all right, homework next month. I picked.
Boo, homework.
Uh-oh.
It's comics, Lilith. Come on, not real homework. All right, so next month I picked 2 issues: Night Stalkers 8 and 9. So
which ones are 8 and 9? I gotta go back to the number.
I don't want to tell. I don't want to tell Lilith who guest stars, but yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Morbius.
I should have known.
Hey.
Well, congratulations, guys. I was, saying, man, how are we going to fill like an hour on this short story? But you guys
We
did
always
it,
have
so
you
thank
covered.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you as always.
Hey, thank you for bringing your contributions, Lycra.
All the important things. Yes,
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so I know we do this every month, but tell them about the newsletter. Tell them social media.
Thank you. Yes, focus on the newsletter. Check out storymaze.substack.com for a mostly weekly newsletter of comics background, sort of like this, and new fiction and essays about editing and writing, and usually something that I'm really into, which you guys might be into too. So that's my plug, and I'm sticking with it.
And again, Chichester Chats now on Facebook and Twitter. So again, if you have an appropriate message, I can pass it along to this man. So
Exactly.
If they're listening to Capes, I don't know how appropriate they're going to be, but fingers crossed.
Oh please, he's dealt with Tomes of Evil. He knows.
Yeah, true.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you, sir.
Well.
Saturday, sir.
All right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.